And good afternoon, everyone again, and thank you for joining us on our SME check-in today. Beautiful day in Cape Town, so wherever you're coming from and connecting with us, I hope it's also nice weather your side and you're all healthy and in good spirit. Today we're going to talk about a growth strategy that we can consider as business owners for our employees. And it's one of those topics that I think we all know we need to do, but quite often we perhaps don't overlook it, but we don't tend to give it the full attention that may be required. So today's discussion is really around just sitting back a bit, taking a little bit of time and see what are the key elements that will drive your employee growth strategy in your business. The idea will be that we just bear in mind where we come from and where we currently are as a business stage, or what phase of our business is in. And just a reminder, there are those 4 stages in a typical business setup. So you start up with your startup stage, all about survival. Most of us as small businesses are in the lifestyle stage. That brings with it its own challenges of scaling, of course, and sort of like making sure that you look after yourself as the business owner, and then systematically appoint more resources, not just staff, but suppliers and other people as well. And of course, we all want to grow our business, and that scalable stage of a business then brings with it its own unique challenges, particularly if you have employees that have been with you some time, or you appoint new employees. And then also to, of course, make sure that you scale on other aspects of your business, such as tools of the trade, aspects such as training and upskilling yourself. Of course, selling more is also quite often and more often than not, it's an emphasis on how do you scale and sell your products, how do you increase your sales. So around this area and this Optigrowth, we then really would like to assist people to drive their business to a sellable entity. So the idea will be that we see it as an asset. Your business is an asset to you. And of course, you want to build a value on it, not just to sell, but perhaps hand it over to the next generation of people in your business, or even attract funding organizations or people that may have interest as other stakeholders for you and your teams. So important that in this whole process, we understand where our staff and our employees are fitting in. So today, we're going to really just take a bit of a look at what are the key elements that we can consider in driving a long-term employee growth program. So, of course, employees are appointed in most, if not in all businesses, with a job title, a certain salary bracket, and quite often that's where it stops. For smaller business, especially when we come out of the COVID pandemic period, we need to explore a little bit how can we engage with our staff at a deeper level. What can we do to understand the makeup of our staff? What makes them tick as the human element in our business, that human capital that is actually in many times the front to the customer, and engage with other stakeholders of the business on our behalf as either shareholders or the board. So engaging in a long-term employee growth program is a good way to understand more about the human element of your staff, but also, of course, to get a buy-in and pull them closer to you so that you can influence them to drive your business strategies on the longer term. All right, so there's a few topics I want to cover with you today. So on this webinar today, it's really just to put a few feelers out there. At the end of the session, we will have a few questions and see if there's anybody who's got pertinent comments or anything that can help us to think a bit wider. So please feel free, make a few notes as we move through the presentation. Towards the end, let's just make some time and see if we can share some ideas and perhaps people's experiences on how to grow the employees. So the first thing I want to talk about today is actually your business resilience. Being through the COVID period now, it is crystal clear that the impact, not just in South Africa, but worldwide, has had huge and tremendous impact on the survivability of business. So there's a fear factor involved. There's all kinds of new norms people are talking about. Sales have been impacted adversely. We are struggling to get out of the COVID influence and start working towards, again, growing our business, incurring new sales. And front of the line will be our employees, the people that maybe left in our business, people that have suffered through the whole period with us, carries our brand proudly. Some of them may be employed for many years. What do we do to actually consider the elements around our business that will impact on the way they view our business and how they can also promote our business further? So the important aspect is all about your business aspirations. You know, the old why we're in business, often people talk around it, and many people find it very difficult to understand it why. We all know what we're selling, we know how we're selling it, but that why, that thing that drives us, that motivates us to, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, to get up in the morning, these things are difficult to define quite often. So a nice way to start around it is to sit back and say, but listen, what are my aspirations as a shareholder? So I started a business, I'm an owner of the business, and have a look at what is motivating you and your partners in the long term. And it can't just be money. There's always a deeper level of why you have started driving your business in a particular brand, in a particular offering to the market. And of course, we want to have financial rewards out of it, but you will have an ambition to also look after yourself, look after your family, and you will have an idea of what you want to do at certain stages of your life. As you mature in your business, you may start driving certain strategies. So for many, you remember the phases that we had of business, where we talked about those 4 phases. That lifestyle phase, that second stage of your business, that's usually where family and friends get involved in a business or have been involved for some time. So it's a very much a relationship-driven experience. You've got a broader network of people close to you that start your business. And basically what you want to do is to then start delegating the workload. As the shareholder, you want to start appointing key managers. A board of directors will always be important. And of course, along the line, you want to have inexpensive costs. In other words, when you pay salaries, you want to pay market-related, perhaps even a bit less salaries as a smaller business, as a strategy to develop your infrastructure. So those expenses are actually critical to make sure that you can actually control your business. And part of that is to consider also your hierarchical roles. That delegation of authority is absolutely critical. So people will look up to you as a leader. So being a business owner comes with these challenges of how do you actually delegate your structures in growing a broader growth of your business, and of course to retain control, but also to mitigate your risk aspects of your business. So aspirations of shareholders is paramount in considering as an upfront aspect in how are you going to grow your employees in your business. So just to recap on that, the very first aspect I suggest we look at is that risk to your business. Start by looking at your shareholder expectations. Right. So what defines employee growth in the workplace? Well, of course, we want to build others to succeed, but it is also a fact that we as a shareholder, quite often we are director on the board, if not the only director, and more often than not, we're also employee in a business. So we literally have to do the work in many cases, and we work many hours a day. So compared to your employees, people that you employ, that you pay a salary, that may not have shares in your business, how do you compare as a business owner, as a shareholder, as a director on a board? And how often do you wear those 3 different caps that we often talk about? As you sit as a business owner, being a shareholder is one thing, but you also carry the fiduciary duties as a company director, specifically if it's a private company under the Current Companies Act in South Africa. As an employee, with the titles, you actually didn't work for salary. You also want to get return of your investment of hours to the business. So shareholders, generally speaking, want an increase in the ownership and the values, the share value to the business, and they want to draw dividends. Company directors and employees will work for salaries. So quite often there could also be conflict between the shareholder structures and those of employees, including company or board of directors. Okay, a reminder that if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and let's see where we can help you and assist you, or maybe even share a bit of experience in your own company towards the end of the presentation. All right, so we've talked about shareholding structures. we talked about the employees and how we consider them. So let's just look a little bit at where these employees fit into your business. So the next question we have to ask is, it's one thing having employees, but how do we fit them into our organization? And as Optigrowth, we often have this discussion with customers and we hear the comments, guys, I'm just too small. I don't need to sit with a company structure. I need to consider these corporate or governance issues around me. I'll get there one day. It's not for me now. And we feel that that's a mistake. We feel that as you said today, any business owner, you have got a company structure already. You do have a marketing department. You do have a sales department. You definitely have a financial department, accounts department, your HR department, and then you've got your projects or your operational departments through which you deliver your product to your customer or your services. So it's critical that as a strategy and towards growing our employees and the values of what we can get out of the employees is to actually consider the company structure. In many cases, those who implement a strategy are like to be different people from those who formulated it. So what it means is that the people that are that started initially the strategic thinking, a shareholder who's got a certain expectation by the end of the year, they would like to see a certain amount of profit. They want to see a reach in the marketplace. Quite often they will have a broader strategy. The people that implement it will be probably your line directors, your middle management team, your employees on the ground. Those are the people that will implement your strategic thinking. And for that purpose and for that reason, absolutely critical that they understand where they fit into your organization. What is their job description? What is their job ranks? Where do they report to? How do they get trained to be equipped with knowledge, tools of the trade? And it's absolutely critical that we must communicate that strategy, what we expect from our employees, communicate it to them and make sure that they understand why, that why factor, why are we asking them to work in certain positions at certain job descriptions and job ranks. So great idea to always involve the rest of the company, share the challenges with them, get the inputs and ideas. Also listen to them, because quite often long-term employees that are valuable to your business have got insight to how your market may be operating, how you render your services, some other values in your business. So by giving them ownership of the strategy, you can actually hear back from them within the context of your organization what the aspect is around the strategy going to go forward and how they could view themselves as part of that strategy. So to recap, shareholder position and the why in your business critical. Then you draw down into your company structure to make sure employees understand where you are, and then you go and make sure that you communicate to them what your strategies are along that line. All right, so the next section or aspect of a wellness program or employee program I would like to discuss with you guys are the leadership issues in the business. So by default, being a business owner, people will look up at you as a business leader, and they will expect you to guide them and to steer them, not only about what you expect from them, but also on how to deliver your product in the marketplace. So there are different types of leadership, and this slide basically just very quickly recaps for us the three different styles that they have to leadership. The one is autocratic style. So it's all about the leader. So in this particular case, you can see that the employees are following the leader, and the leader has an autocratic style of management in his business. It's a culture of compliance. So you do what I tell you to do. This is by the letter what I expect you to do, and I measure your performance against that. It's a directive culture of consistency where things are done methodically, and it's all about the leader making a decision and very strongly drive that. Okay, so along the lines of leadership, from autocratic, you can also get a participative leader, where the leader now includes the employees. So it's the whole group, the company as a whole has got a culture of inclusion. So we share strategies, we work together, we hear our employees, and it becomes a transformational leadership. So the leader transforms himself into a leadership style where he includes people and make them part of the roadmap forward. All right, the next one will be a free rein leader, where the leadership of the business or a leader drives the strategy to the point where he actually wants to um, have the freedom to actually step away from the business. He actually wants to have uh, a workforce that can think for themselves, that's how innovative, that can actually on the fly have the confidence to actually drive the business, to drive the business and have that innovative culture as front in mind for them. It's not that they don't respect the leader, don't look up at him. So somebody like Google as an example are very employee focused. Perhaps they participate between that participative and that free range thing of leadership. And it is a fact that there's no one size fits all kind of leadership, but it's good that we understand to what extent leaders exert themselves in business. All right. So we covered the shareholders, we covered the company structure. We now understand leadership have got a direct impact on employees and the way that employees participate in the business. Think for yourself and your business, where are your employees, including people close to you? Remember, we said as a board of directors, if you're three partners, you don't have many employees, you act like an employee sometimes, you know. So somewhere along the line, you're going to need leadership and you're going to need guidance. If you have employees, think what your style of leadership is, and a reminder that while no one size fits all, we have to adapt to what makes our business work and what works for us as the expert in the marketplace that are looking to increase our sales, looking to increase our footprint in the marketplace. All right, I've put this slide up here. It's courtesy of Karen from Effect Consulting. And what we're trying to illustrate here is more around the emotional intelligence of leadership. So particularly for leaders, we start off by thinking, right, we're talking about leaders. What about their personal and social competence? So how do they interact personally, one-to-one with another human being, or in a group? How do they actually exert themselves and display themselves in a social environment? So that self-awareness and self-management skills from a personal competence point of view is absolutely critical to identify in the leadership cycle. And in this particular case, we just for now concerned about the emotional intelligence of a leader. Of course, there are the environmental, operational, and cultural components of it that we have to consider, and more about that in another discussion. For now, we're just focusing on emotional intelligence of the leadership itself. Okay, so that social competence, we are aware of your social abilities, your relationship management skills. These aspects, you as the leader or your leadership team, need to understand more about it. Very difficult to expect certain results from your employees or from your teams around you, even if you outsource some of your work and you don't know yourself where your competence levels lie. How competent are you personally and how competent are you socially within that context? Right. So still on leadership, and now we just a little bit more having a deep dive into the emotional intelligence component of it. Right. So from here now, what we want to look at is now we have the leaders in tune. We understand leadership styles. We understand how the different personalities are fitting in that top structure of the business. Now we want to look at the employees, and in particular in this case, we want to look at the personal impact indicators, the characteristics of an employee, and what makes them tick. Well, how do they react as human beings in the context of a workplace, and how do they actually differ from each other? And in doing so, we need to understand their personal values. We need to make an attempt to understand how do they view life around them in general, how do they view themselves within your workplace, but also personally to themselves. So why values? Values drive the culture, so important aspect there. We all have a culture in our business, right? So at Optigrowth, besides the brand, there's a different culture in our business, as I'm sure that each and every one of you have. There's also the understanding that culture will drive employee fulfillment. So the more an employee feel part of a company culture, the more they feel inclusive in strategic thinking forward, the more they feel that they're part of building a roadmap with you, the more fulfilled they will be in their career growth with the company. Now that fulfillment then reflects back onto your customer, or perhaps even wider, not just customers, suppliers, key suppliers, perhaps other stakeholders to your business, because people, when they deal with your employees, they feel that there's a pride, there's an ownership value within the context of the employee's relationship with your business. All right. So now, of course, customer satisfaction drives shareholder value. Speaks for itself. The happier our customer is, and in our case, we really drive referral customers as a very key strategy. So we don't just chase customer satisfaction, but really would like customers to become referrals of our business. The more they talk about a business, the better. And a good way to encourage customers to do that is by giving them excellent service, out of the world, that wow factor service. And to do that, you need resources. If not yourself, you're going to have to outsource work. You're going to have to appoint employees. You're going to have tools of the trade, of course, and all those sort of things. When it comes to employee values, it's a good idea to understand what their values are. So as we discussed with leadership, we now want to take the next step in understanding what are employees' personal and social competence. To what extent do they measure themselves up against a self-awareness and a self-management within the context of personal competence. And as we discussed, social competence, also understand what makes them socially aware, to what extent are they good at relationship management. So in our case, as an example, for those of you that do know us, you know that Barbara is an excellent relationship person. She comes across engaging, she listens. Whereas myself, perhaps I'm not much of a social person. I get bored easily, perhaps, and my way of driving a customer relationship will be a bit different to what Barbara sees. It's not a wrong and a right thing, with perhaps a personal competency more than a social competence, and Barbara the other way around. So in that event, we understand it, and when you have a certain customer relationship or a certain project or a certain aspect that we need to look at a customer or resources around us, we understand who fits in where, and we can get the most out of people. All right, so now we're starting to understand now that we need to have the personal values that impact indicators of our people, our employees. And in theory, we actually want to understand where they fit into thinking from a left brain or a right brain angle, meaning that which side of the brain is actually dominant. So that left brain is mostly analytical and methodical in their thinking. On the right-hand side, people on the right brain, as people, they are more creative and artistic, okay? So think for yourself as a leader, what are you? Are you more methodical in your thinking? Are you a little bit more creative, artistic, more entrepreneurial in spirit? And then what we do is we use a product called I3 profiling, and we then basically assess the employee individually, including the leadership teams, the management teams, and we plot out where these people fit on a quadrant where we actually look at task-oriented people, which are loners, people that are really focused on that sort of methodical thinking, you would say. We're thinking of people that are ordered and structured, compared to social people that are more socially inclined, and people that are really flexible. So as an example, there could be a spread of your employees between these different aspects or impact indicators to your employee profile. It's good that you understand it. It's easy enough to have an opinion, but why not test it? Take the time, start with yourself, your shareholders, your leadership team, directors on the board, yourself, of course, and of course your employees. And once you start getting a feel for this, you will start looking at how your team is actually working together. So in this particular case, it's a number of people in a team, so that the profile study was done. We have an aggregated score, and we can say for this business, if you look at the business profile from an impact indicator point of view, this business have got a long-term goal-focused team, because they are actually falling at the top level of being a goal-oriented and coordinating team. And we can give you much more information about the actual colors and the breakdown of the different indicators. But in this particular case, just for interest's sake, it's a very strategic team. So there's a good mix of a left and right brain thinkers in this particular case. They're very factual, objective, and quick thinking, good communicators, direct and clear, but they have a possibility of being rigid and stubborn. Okay, so they're not easy to change their mind on a particular aspect of what I think they should do in a certain situation. All right. Also, they might overemphasize accuracy and productivity. So So analysis paralysis comes to mind, where they dive deep into assessing aspects or driving to the point of accuracy. That can also cost money and perceptions with employees and customers alike. This team are also lack emotion in making decisions, so they're very perhaps a little bit leaning over towards clinical decision making rather than having the empathy that one should have in particular cases. And just as a matter of interest, from a experience over the last few months with the COVID pandemic, we have seen many management teams that are perhaps oversympathetic in cases. In other cases, they are so clinical and they're so hard on focusing on survival that they lost the opportunity to maintain a level of security for the time after and pandemic or after the crisis. So they, if they are too clinical in this particular team's case, perhaps they may step on people to the point, and step being just an indicator, they may utilize their skills to the extent of actually making people negative around them. All right. Then there's also a possibility for this team of implementing issues that that needs to be done in the short to the medium term. So, you know, it's a very focused thing. We've got a job on hand. Let's get it done. Let's get it done very accurately, and perhaps not thinking onto critically how it's going to impact on the environment around them. All right. So now we understand the employees' aspirations. We know what the indicators are. We understand the leadership team with that. We've got a company structure where we know people fit in by job rank. They've got job descriptions. We have performance schemes to, of course, measure them. And behind all of that lies our shareholders that understand the resilience of the business. They understand what needs to be done to reach where they want to go with their visions and their strategies. All right. So now we need to look a little bit more about how are we going to actually tie that employee? How can you return rewards to employees when they do perform? So there's a few aspects about employee retention I just want to quickly mention to you. So to retain employees, you could consider giving them shares in a business, selling them shares in a business, or allocating certain share options. You can provide them with bonuses. So in my previous years of business, I would have celebrated a 5-year stay of an employee. People that, and then I give them a gold pen. If they've 10 years with us, then they get a check, a cash bonus or a spot bonus check. So we recognize people staying with us for certain periods, and we celebrate it in that recognition. And remember, this is all about employee retention now. So our employees are in the business, they're working their butts off, they're structured, we know the characteristics in the business, and now we're working to think how can we actually maintain or retain those employees in the business. Flexi hours is also a good one. In the new norm, flexi hours is almost a given now. As I'm talking to you now, I'm working from my study. We don't have the need for businesses. Our customers have changed their profile. So flexi hours is not just anymore now working during business hours. It could be if you start reaching global markets with technology nowadays and the way the global market is shrinking for us, it may be different hours of the day, of course, as well. So good to adapt to your employees' personal lifestyle and see how you can work flexi hours into it. And of course, with it comes leave arrangements. Extra leave is not just the holiday leave. It could be other leaves, compassionate leave, the days off. It's Christmas coming up, so you may have a company day that you just close. Typically, something like the 1st of January historically has been a day of no work or employee free day in Cape Town, as an example, or the Western Cape. So those are ways that you can actually consider also rewarding employees and retain them in your business. For me, all of these things are great and it's fantastic, but if you really want to grow your employees and if you want to really give them a career plan in your business, you have to give them a program of where they are going. You have to talk to them, train them, of course, on the technical aspects of delivering a product, but also give them an idea of how you can assist them to understand themselves better as a human being, but also to fit into your environment where they feel comfortable with their colleagues around them in the company culture, as an example. So the growth program aspect where you train your people, where you engage with them, communicate, they communicate back to you, is a great way to also retain employees. And then the last one, of course, is promotion. Everybody likes to be rewarded. It's one thing to get a bit of money in your pocket for good work done, but to promote somebody from one job rank to the next and make a statement about it, with it perhaps comes a financial reward. It's a great way to say to your employee, listen, I recognize you. I, I know what you're doing for us, and I know you can do more for us. So I'm going to put you in a different rank, a more senior rank of job title in my business. And for that purpose, while I may pay you a bit more, and it's not always necessarily the fact, but I'm definitely going to expect more from you. So think about delegation. So you promote an employee as a leader, as a director in your business, or a senior manager. You may want to delegate some of your duties. And in that event, by promoting people, people are proud and to take on some extra duties. And it becomes a culture in business where people, when they perform, can look forward to promotion and delegation of workloads. Just an interesting one quickly. This slide basically talks about the international comparison. So if you look at the human capital trends for 2016, a little bit of an outdated period, but it's still very relevant. In fact, I wonder if it's not more relevant today. In South Africa, compared to global reach, you can see the difference in the way that people are looking at leadership in business. 65% in South Africa compared to 48% in the global trends. And the people analytics, where they literally study the characteristics, those go-to points, what makes people tick in business, 45% to 28%. So it's a great slide to actually just remind us that in South Africa, we have many challenges, and we surely have a long way to go to eradicate, if ever at all, some of the past challenges that we had. But the one thing that we have on our side, we've got a very good banking system. Our labor law, while it leans very heavily towards the employee, is also recognizing many aspects of where we as leaders grow our employees. And you can clearly see that in the trend that is leaning towards leadership. And then, of course, the people analytical side, there's a tendency towards working with people and understand where they fit best into organizations. Actually, a great slide. All right, so so now that we have all of this packaged, we understand that we, from a shareholder scheme through to company structure, through to the performance, how do we actually say thank you to people and promote them and retain them in our business? What we want to do now is we also want to measure it. So what is the use of doing all of this and we can't measure the results? So the idea will be that we find a way to actually regularly measure if there's an improvement from our employees in the way that they will promote our business. So ultimately, we need to sell more. We need to reach more bigger market positions, and we need to make sure that our employees actually promote us now. So what we now want to do is, as a next step, will be to actually check and measure how our employees will refer us to any opportunities outside. So to minimize your company's dependence on you personally and relying on your employees, you're going to have to understand that you're going to have structures in place, people appoint the right positions. What are the indicators, as we mentioned before? Are they left brain, right brain? Where do they fit into your business structure? And then you perform an employee net promoter score. So in this particular case, you do a survey, literally what we call a net promoter survey. We like to do this, if not twice a year, at least once a year, depending on where your year end is. And in fact, now is a great time to do it. If your year end is in February of 2021 coming up, great time to do a net promoter score now. And what you really want to do is you want to measure the ultimate promoter score, which is the promoters minus the detractors here. So your net promoter score, again, is equal to your promoters minus your detractors. The passives in the middle actually mean nothing to you. They're just loyal and good employees, but they're not the guys that will step up and really go to the extra mile to promote your business. So a net promoter score together with the Gallup matrix is a very cool way to then measure the progress you made. So say your net promoter score was 35 for 2019. In 2020, your net promoter score is 45. And next year, when you do it again, you drive towards a high promoter score by working your employee growth program, and you set yourself a target. And imagine it improves to 60. Now, my experience in this, and I'm sure people around today's webinar that have got experience in growing employee structures will agree that the more your team buys into your strategies, into your long-term goals and visions, the more they promote you, the better your business feels. The more you start selling, the more you have opportunities that you can actually grow your business, not just in money, but also in enjoying benefits from it, of course. So really great tool to use, the Net Promoter Analysis, or scores, we call it, to do the survey. If you need help, ask us. It's really quite simple, but get that score. It also becomes a marketable thing. So when you have your score, you can actually go back to your customers and say, Mr. Customer, our recent Net Promoter Score for employees indicated a growth of X% from last year. We did this by focusing on the following key aspects. We identified these areas that we want to improve on for the next year. Great way, great marketing way, tool or marketing strategy to actually go back to your stakeholders as well. All right, so the Gallup matrix is a well-known matrix that is used to measure employee satisfaction. Remember, we're not particularly interested in the employee satisfactions, not that we're ignoring it, we're driving towards the referral result, but it is good to pick up from your employees aspects as they know what is expected from them to work. At work, my opinions seem to count, and you measure and get that score as part of the same survey, right? Again, very simple to do it online. We do it for many customers. You just set up a link and give it to your staff and request it from them to complete a survey. And these surveys, just as a bit of a note on it, it has to be anonymous. Okay, so you're not asking people to declare who they are or what their personal opinions are. Anonymous survey to measure your results and your growth of your employee program. So what are the next steps then? So we've gone through a number of points here. Just very quickly, key points you can look at. First of all, look at your company structure, right? So we know the shareholders are part of it. Look at that company structure, decide your divisions, departments, and so on. Then fill in your job ranks. So never build the company structure around your people. Always develop your company structure, and then the people must fit into that company structure by means of qualification, experience, and of course, performance. But make sure that people have got a job definition and a description around it. Next step will be then to introduce staff performance or review your staff performance. Minimum, we would say twice a year. Develop an assessment policy where you literally measure how your staff is performing. And in that event, while you measure them and you review them, let them also review you as a leader, as the board of directors. So upwards and downwards feedback, again, encourage people to share information. So that individual assessment is talked about, where you look at the impact indicators, where people are literally, what are their characteristics? Are they people who like to work on their own? Are they people who are very socially interactive? They're typical salespeople or marketing kind of people. Look at your team, get a result, and aggregate the results, and work your teams through a mentoring and a training coaching program where you can build people to understand where they fit in your organization. Not just by means of a job description, but also by means of their personal values, their personal indicators. So the two goes hand in hand, and we refer to it as the employee wellness, development of that wellness of those employees. And remember, those employees may include yourself. You are a leader in a business, sure, but you also step down and do a lot of the work as part of getting the job done every day. All right, do your employee satisfaction survey. That Net Promoter Score is a good measure of your growth on your employee program. How you feel about where you're going can be determined very much by your Net Promoter Score, in this case, particularly for employees. And then, of course, in the end, based on all of this, you want to make sure your staff have got reasonable salaries. So look at the market, analyze where you are. If a bookkeeper is earning 10,000 Rand in a general trend in the marketplace for your kind of business, and you pay them 8,000 Rand, ask yourself why. Is it because they're inexperienced, are they young, or are they not performing? And have a discussion with the employee to make sure that they understand where they fit in and where they can grow to. So you can see the impact from the employee growth in your business being structured throughout these processes. Okay. This then all falls back onto your financial planning. So everything costs money. Whatever we talk around here, paying employee salaries is probably your biggest expense. So have a look and see where your key employees are. Do the clinical analysis, but also understand you have to have emotional or perhaps empathy for employees, particularly under pressure periods like the pandemic now that we currently sit with, and other aspects of life that may hit them. So your financial planning, now is the time to do that. Generally speaking, if you look at end of February as your financial year end, it's a great time to actually look at your budgets and plan where you're going to go. All right, so just as a summary, that was really the key pointers I could thought of that will help you and assist you to develop your employees in your business. And I would appreciate if there's any questions, if you have any comments, perhaps your personal experience will be great. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. So I'm just going to open up for everybody. All right, so anybody who's got any questions perhaps or comments for us?
Hank, it's Barbara here.
Yes, Barbara.
Thank you for that. I think what we learned in our previous business that we had was when you do an assessment on your staff members, we also allowed them to have the upward feedback on their line manager. And it was always a very interesting thing to understand how your employee actually saw you as their either leader or line manager. And I think if we look back, it was always a good thing for them to be able to give that sort of feedback, because in the event of a manager actually being either problematic or not a good leader, then obviously a few staff members saying the same thing would actually then pinpoint an issue in that team or with that person heading up the team. So it was always quite an interesting one when we actually did both sides in the employee assessments.
Yeah, spot on. And it also encourages discussions, things like not just a leadership style above you, but also where's your career going. So you expect your line manager, your team leader to be capable to assist you to drive where you're going with your career. And so it's a good way to actually have that upward and downward feedback. It's a key strategy for your employee program. Thanks for that, Bobby. All right, anybody else? Just a key point today, if you guys need help to get some of this stuff done, the I3 profiling as an example, if you would like to just do a study on yourself or your people, let us know. And also the Net Promoter Score could be a really good one just to see where you are now. It doesn't have to be a long process. It's quite inexpensive. And get your Net Promoter Score for your business so that you can understand where to go to for 2021, how you're going to actually work your employees, the program with them to develop them, and of course get best value for your investment of salaries and others against them. All right. Okay, guys, if there's nothing else, thank you for joining today. It's really, I think it's a pertinent topic for this time of the year, first and foremost, but also for coming fresh out of the pandemic and still being in it, I suppose, not just locally, but globally, if you look at what's happening. I think employees are fearful sometimes. There's a lot of perceptions in the market. Some people have endured it through tough times. And good to actually sit back a bit and think where we're going with our employees as a big investment of our business. So thanks for joining today. Appreciate it. And be sure to dial in into our next SME check-in for some good content and some interesting profiles that we're going to cover. So thanks for joining.